Hey, motivators. Good to see everybody this fine Saturday afternoon. Pretty excited about today's Leadership Jam session. I'm going to sit down with retired Navy SEAL Master Chief Steve Drum. We're going to just chat. We served together at Recruit Training Command when Recruit Training Command was going through a major change. I wasn't able to get the entire clip in there, but I was able to glean out a pretty good section of a video that talks about warrior toughness. We're going to post in the comments below the entire video. I recommend you watch it. It's about 23 minutes long, and it really gets after why the Navy implemented the warrior toughness program and the evolution of that program. I was blessed to be the Command Master Chief at Recruit Training Command. The plaque is behind me. It's kind of awesome that it's back there. In case anybody was wondering, this is my tours at Recruit Training Command. I did two there, but my favorite piece is this back here because this is my grandfather's photo from Recruit Training Command in 1944 before he went off to war. So anyway, I really just am excited to share this with you and have this conversation with Steve. Steve's an outstanding leader. He's done some amazing things, and we're going to ask him to share with us over the next hour or so. So sit back, enjoy, and comment as we go along. Heather's here. Say hi, sweetheart.
Hello.
Heather's here, so she'll be following along in the comments. And if you want to comment along and ask questions of Steve, we'll answer them as best we can. We're just kind of go go with the flow and let it take us where it goes. So Heather, please play that clip, and then we're going to come back with Steve on the line. So here we go.
We all knew that, yes, we need tough sailors, right? We had incidences of missiles being fired at ships, collisions, and while we had a lot of very heroic sailors step up and do what they needed to do to get through that situation, unfortunately, we have a lot of instances of our sailors not being able to cope. That stress level gets really high. You have fight, flight, or freeze, and we can't afford to have our sailors freeze. Where do we start? Well, the best and most logical step is to start where our sailors first come in at the accession part, and that's Recruit Training Command. So that's the first place that we sought about instilling toughness, was with our recruits. Then they start to commit to buying into the concept. This program at RTC first started when Admiral Bernanke at Naval Service Training Command locked a Navy SEAL, a chaplain, and a clinical psychologist into a room and said, hey, figure it out. Get after toughness. How do we create a program based on the body, mind, soul approach? And that's what we've done. We believe we've found toughness at the intersection of mental, physical, and spiritual strength.
How about that? Mental, physical, and spiritual strength. What's going on, Steve?
Hey, how's it going? Hey, thanks for having me on. It's great to catch up as well as be on. I know some folks that we both know are watching, so hi to all of you. This will be fun.
Yeah, man. So as I stated before, this is just a leadership jam session, man. This is just going to be us chatting. You know, there's no script. There's no right or wrong answer. You're retired, so you can say whatever you want. I'm still active duty. I've got be a little bit careful, but hey, batteries released for you, brother. You know, whatever you want to say, it's open game. So we're gonna let's delve into, you know, first and foremost, what an honor it was to serve beside you. It was there's some moments that we had, and I you know, there was a part in that video where you said, hey, you know, they put a seal in there because it lends a little bit of credence to the mental toughness thing. And there was one thing I remember talking to you about participating in the Chiefs Mess. Before we delve into the warrior toughness stuff, I really appreciated the fact that you were so proactive in the Chiefs Mess, especially as a Navy SEAL, right? Because, you know, we don't get to see that cross community stuff, and RTC has a smattering of every community in it, and your involvement in the mess really meant a lot. And I remember I used to ask you all the time, I said, man, if you just get up with that shiny pin and say something, everybody will listen. So I really appreciated how much you participated in that stuff, because, you know, there was just all of that there's no obligation. So your dedication, not just like to the warrior toughness and the changing of the Navy, like we're going to talk about, but just your dedication in general was inspiring, man. And I don't know if I ever said, hey, Steve, thanks. So, post-mortem, thanks a lot, brother. I really do appreciate it.
And I appreciate that. And, I loved serving under your passion and your dedication. And, it's always tough, right? When you're in I know it's that lonely at the top sometimes, right? When you're, command master chief or you're an executive leader in any organization. But I think that really there can be no doubt that obviously you had to support the command, support the mission, but I always admire just how no matter what, you always try to give the right thing for the sailor, whether they wanted it at the time or not, you always try to do right by everybody. And I appreciate that. So it was an honor to serve with you as well.
Thanks. Yeah. So I will share something for you. The toughest piece of transformational leadership for me at Recruit Training Command, and the thing that I struggled with mightily, I could probably do an entire show by myself crying into the camera. The toughest part about transformational leadership, when you're someone who tries to give the sailors everything they need to be successful, was when we started to change the curriculum and we started to add these things in, was especially with dealing with some of the things that command had dealt with in the past, was letting the sailors know that the change wasn't their fault. I mean, what the listeners might not know is that Recruit Training Command, their curriculum has been the same for over 3 decades. We hadn't done a deep dive. We hadn't looked at, hey, are we giving the fleet a truly basically trained sailor that the Navy needs today, right? It was the sailor the Navy needed 30 years ago, but not necessarily today. So what I struggled with in leadership was, do the sailors understand why we're changing this today, so that as they go forward in their job, there's buy-in, that they understand that this isn't on their backs, that we're doing this for the Navy, not because they failed in their job. So that was a very difficult piece, at least on my end. And then we plug in guys like you, right? That just went after stuff, right? And you nailed it in the video where Admiral Bernanke just said, hey, and I remember being in the room where he said, mind, body, soul. I want to get after their mind, body, soul. And then he started pulling people out. He was the godfather, pulling people. I got a guy. I know a guy. So talk to us about how that process started for you for the Warrior Toughness program.
Well, I mean, quite literally, it started for me when we were sitting around the table one day in our Master Chiefs meetings, and you just because you and I would sit next to one another, and you looked over and be like, hey, it was right after they had done the evaluation, right? The deep dive into the curriculum at boot camp. And you're like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Right. Asking me, but telling me, right. And that's how that, and I was like, well, yeah, sure. Why not? I already knew that this would be a good chance to contribute. We had done a little bit of the working groups and how we're exactly going to improve training, how we're going to get about getting our sailors tougher. And then after those working groups, then it became serious. Okay, now we're actually going to move out on something, and you get to be a part of it. And you get to be a part of this triad of a psychologist and a chaplain, which is that in and of itself was intriguing to me, right? 3 completely different disciplines, professions, and we get together and try to create something. And what was interesting is that when we all kind of sat down, the 3 of us initially, we realized that, we're approaching it from totally different areas, but we really had a lot more in common in terms of the direction that we should take to get our young sailors and then ultimately young officers tougher and better prepared to deal with the rigors of not just being shot at, but also the challenges in everyday life, right? So, the first thing we have to do was figure out, what is toughness? How do we define it? And how do we measure it? And so that was one of the initial big challenges that we had.
Yeah, we talked about in the pre-show, if you will, we talked about grit, right? did that ever come up in the conversation? Did you guys get after grit, or was that something that, develops over time and further down the road?
Well, when you talk about like something toughness, you can easily conflate that with grit too. And then there's the third thing besides toughness and grit would be resilience. And so people a lot of times use those interchangeably. And so we would get to questions, and it may have been like more after you left, but I think you sat in on a lot of the kind of what we call the VIP briefs that we'd have typically almost every week. It seemed like for a while, we're briefing senior foreign military, Navy, other branches, congressmen, senators. We're briefing them on the program, and inevitably the question would come up: Is this like a resilience program? So we had to define that, and so we discern the difference between resilience and toughness by saying resilience. If you have a toughness program, it's a more complete, it's broader. So resilience would fall up under that, meaning like resilience is my ability to kind of go through a level of adversity, trauma, whatever that is, and elastically bounce back to the same levels that I was before. The problem with that is, what if I sucked to begin with? And so if I go back to that same level, that's not getting me through, right? I need to be actually effective in that moment during that traumatic event, right? That is, if I'm tough, I'm also resilient. Meaning I not only can I bounce back, but I'm going to perform at a higher level than previously if I make these interventions and I train in these skill sets and techniques. And so that's what we did. Now, and grit is a factor of several different things. Like I think it became really popular, especially in the business world, with Angela Duckworth's book, her book called Grit. And the way I kind of look at grit is, one of the things that I teach when I go into businesses and talk with organizations is, it's kind of my version of grit. And it's, being able to clarify the objective, figure out exactly what you need to do, what's important, what that goal is, whether it's a specific goal or whether it's like a higher level of performance, right? Having purpose behind what you do, right? Having that strong sense of purpose. And lastly, being able to persevere through those obstacles. Okay. Is being able at the outset, be like, you know what? I'm doing something important here, and there's no way in hell this is going to be easy. And matter of fact, if I can think about this challenge, and that challenge that I'm going to probably encounter, then I can start getting on board. That way, when I face that challenge, I'm not back on my heels, deer in the headlights, right? I've already said, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. No big deal. Let me just figure out how to solve this and get around it.
Yeah. So Petty Officer Cooper is in that video. He was on John S. McCain when the collision happened. He's an RDC now, stationed at Recruit Training Command, pushing boots, sharing his life, his experience. And again, petty officers can make a huge impact up there by sharing their experiences on a daily, but his is exceptional. And he talked about that specific thing about how, and I read in Front Burner, which covers the USS Cole attack, that people behave pretty much similar to what he was describing in the video, where you had people that just basically sat in the corner and were useless and weren't combat effective. And so the one thing that, again, the piece that bothered me about when I was at RTC was the fleet likes to blame boot camp. I'm not saying they do, but you would hear comments, right? That's a very general, the fleet would, but you would hear comments like, what are they doing at boot camp? What's wrong with boot camp? And the response would be, well, they're only there for 8 weeks. You have them for 4 years. What are you doing with them? Right. But boot camp is the foundation, right? That is the foundation. And that is what you are instilling with Warrior Toughness, is a foundation that others can build on and continue to build a better warfighter, effective warfighter, someone that when the missiles are flying, when the ship is in the middle of an emergency, they can fight the ship, save the ship, and prevent a major catastrophe. People like on board the Cole, on board the John S. McCain, those two are good examples of people that saved the ship, where other people didn't perform. So let's talk about what the baseline was in the mental, physical, and spiritual, mind, body, soul. In the video, it talks about competence, character, and warrior mindset. How did you break those three down?
A lot of it was based on, trying to dovetail some of that stuff into the Navy's 4 core attributes, right? And watch me get this wrong, because it's been initiative, accountability,
Yeah,
toughness,
yes,
and
integrity.
integrity. Thank you. Right? It's been a while. Sorry.
It's all right, man. I told you retired. I was the one under the gun. I had to know that. So I was able to help you out.
All right. So how it goes is we need war fighters that can, as we say in the SEAL teams, right, perform on the X when the bullets are flying, right? The most extreme example. We need that warrior to be able to do that. Okay. So in order for them to do that, they got to be strong in body. They got to have skill development. And what we did that's different is we had the mental game. We added in performance psychology, like special operations forces use, and all the top athletic organizations, college, professional level, etc., and even a lot of corporate organizations use now as well. But it's not enough just for them to be able to do that, right? Just because you can perform when the bullets are flying, that's not the complete answer. We need people that'll do for the left for the people to the left and right of them, right? Selflessly put the teams, the missions, their brother and sister's needs above their own, and they also need to make the right decision, with integrity, right? They have to be people. They have to be young men and women of character, and so that's really how we got after that. And so character is obviously very, it's a little bit more squishy, right? It's more difficult to teach, and so the way we got after that was primarily in the chaplain's wheelhouse. And so we did a lot of case studies and sea stories, basically to really split kind of how ethical, morally, weak decisions could lead to mission failure or just bad things happening. And so we taught them how to do that. And we actually taught them how to tell sea stories. Like when you're in front of your recruits, here's how you want to tell a sea story, right? You've got to have, an opening act. You've got to have that sets the tone of, where you are in the background, right? And then you go through what the problem is, and then you wrap it up with the resolution and like the meaning of the story, right? So give stories because that's how we learn. That's how we communicate best, is through stories. So make your sea story on point and make it drive the right message to people who say, yeah, I want to be that person. I want to go forward and do the right thing, as opposed to, and that's very difficult. Right. And I think in terms of just, warrior toughness, kind of what you were kind of hinting on earlier, is what we fundamentally demonstrated is that it's a proof of concept. We had the research. It's not just some stuff that we threw out there. Our psychology team with our research, psychologist over at Naval Service Training Command, we gathered data from each of the study and control divisions to make sure that the interventions that we were using were actually like making a difference in terms of higher test scores and higher PT scores, on-time graduation rates, which we know is super important in terms of budgeting and getting, butts in the seats in the fleet. And so, yeah, we looked at that and we made sure that we could measure it and we could drive it forward. But it's like if I go to the range, you teach me how to shoot in boot camp and I get to be a marksman or even an expert qualified shooter. And then, a year later, I go back to the range and I'm barely on paper. Should you be that surprised? Mm-hmm. No, probably not. Right. So same thing with warrior toughness. The skills that we teach, we're just setting that base. They've got to be developed. And that's the part that, as I was stepping out of the Navy, still trying to figure out how we have the follow-on training.
Yeah. So interject is his opinion. And we were getting after a lot of that before we did because in the video talks about how we did the 4 working groups and we got on to the CNO's design and those 4 core attributes, and that's really how we redesigned boot camp, was doing those working groups and getting after that. But even before we started doing that, I distinctly remember going to a meeting, and I can't remember if it was a Chiefs meeting or a CMC call. And I looked at the group and I said, it is not an appropriate answer to say that you join the Navy for college. That is not why you're in the Navy. You join the Navy to serve your country and defend your country. Period. End of story. You're a war fighter. I don't want to hear anything else except for you're a war fighter, and that's what we're getting after. So when this became a thing, it was like a godsend, because to say, oh, it's okay, you joined for the benefits. That's the benefits are a bonus, right? I don't even like to call them benefits, right? You earn that by going and serving honorably. So that's just his insert to warrior toughness is if you go into this understanding, right? My last boss, and I say this over and over and over again. Well, I don't know if I want to say it on the interweb. I'll leave this alone, but let's just say the great power competition is a thing, right? And if you watch the news and you know what's going on in the world, we need to be very honest with ourselves that there are bad actors out there, and that we're the ones standing between them and the people we love. Plain and simple. I'll just leave it at that, right?
I would only disagree or push back slightly onto what you said. And
awesome. I love it. Do it.
In the sense that, like, I can't fault the young 18-year-old that wants to join the Navy for college. I mean, because I joined the Navy because I wanted to be a SEAL. Now, I was connected with, and I looked up to the Vietnam generation as heroes, but it was largely about me, right? It was because I wanted to prove that I could do it, right? That's why I joined, right?
Right. The what's in it for me, right.
So it wasn't until the bell went off for me that I looked around. I'm like, holy shit, I get to be around these awesome humans. And then I started to kind of buy in to, other things, serving to something greater than myself, into the team, into the mission, in the country. And then my patriotism kind of grew. So what I would say is, when you have a young recruit that comes in that says, I want to trade, I joined the Navy for this. Sure. Awesome. Yeah. Good. Guess what? You're going to get college. You're going to get that trade. For those of you that came from a really bad place and this is your only way out, awesome. You're going to get that family that you maybe never had, that brotherhood, sisterhood that you never had. And then you pivot. Right. And then you're going to get all that, but here's what I need you to do. And then you start developing them, right? So you don't shut them down, because all of a sudden they go in and they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't care that I'm not getting money for college and this and that, right? Acknowledge that. Just say, here's what else we need for you, or here's what we need from you first.
So my point is that I get where you're coming from, but it's not the sale, it's not the recruit, right? Because we're talking about recruits. It's not the recruit that is at fault. It's not the recruit's job. Really, I mean, you're right. They come in for the whiffum, right? It's all about me, because that's the detail, or the recruiter's job is to tell them all this fancy stuff they're going to get when they come into the Navy, and all the benefits of service and so on and so forth. And that's what gets them to come into the Navy. And I remember distinctly when I pushed boots telling people that I joined because I wanted to serve my country. And then when I took real stock, it was really about the whiffum. It wasn't about that. That became, you just said it, it became about serving your country. Mm-hmm. Someone has to instill that, though. Mm-hmm. And that is the job of the RDC, 100%. And then the instructor when they go through training. And then when they get to the fleet, their LPO, their work center soup, their LPO, their chief, whatever, wherever they're working, it's their job to teach them how to do that stuff. So,
yeah, and I say, because I never served on board. Like my initial taste in the fleet is I came in the Navy and was such a math dummy that I didn't qualify for SEALs by 2 or 3 points, and so I ended up working as an HT on fast attack submarines in Connecticut, and that was my taste of the fleet. And back then, it was just a bunch of people that maybe had nothing better to do. We looked down at the people that were going to make a career out of the Navy because we're just dumb kids.
You're right.
I didn't have anybody who was like, I didn't have a mentor who was like, hey, this is about the Navy. It was just about doing your shore duty job from 9 to 5 or whatever. That's what it was. Like I knew I wanted more, and that's what kept me focused and engaged. But there was no mentoring like about like patriotism or service or anything like that, which, I can see where things go awry.
Yeah, I was pushing boots from 2000, 2003. So the Cole happened while I was at Recruit Training Command. And then the following year, 9/11 happened. And you saw a major shift in why people were joining and, the kind of that motivation to serve, which has waxed and waned over years. But here's the thing, and I'll leave it at this, and we can bounce back and get back on track, is that, and I said it this week, I was sitting in on a leadership school for new Command Master Chiefs and Command Senior Chiefs, and everywhere I have served, to include Recruit Training Command, we love to beat up on millennials. We love to just kind of pound away and talk about, everybody gets a trophy and helicopter parents and lawnmower parents and whatever other term you want to use. What's that? Bulldozers, right. And as a matter of fact, there's somebody just commented on this that was in my division when I was pushing his division when the Cole got hit. So, man, we're both old, brother. So anyway, we were talking about the millennials. The people that come into the service today are exceptional. They just want to be led. Some of them don't have the tools, which is why Warrior Toughness was created, but they want to serve. They are no less patriotic than you and I were when we came in. They're no less dedicated. They're more talented, I would say, because they're raised differently with more technology, with better ways to communicate. They're not necessarily better communicators. Trust me, I got a 28-year-old who's just a horrible communicator. God, I love her, but hey, she doesn't communicate very well. Right. And that's my fault as a parent, but that's the generation thing. Right. So we created Warrior Toughness to get after the piece, to make the best warfighter the Navy's ever seen, in my opinion. What do you think?
Absolutely. Because we're smarter about how we do business. So to your point to the millennials, there are just certain traits that, and how, not that they learn differently, but they're, because that's, people learn this. It would take 1,000 years to train to differ that, but it's, they have tendencies to gravitate towards different methods of learning. I'll say that. Okay. There is obviously the snowflake thing gets bandied about, right? I know in the corporate world, they say that they have a tendency to really want a lot more feedback, right? They seem to crave that, like, more effective, helpful feedback. And so fine. What the hell is wrong with that? Isn't that our job as leaders to make sure that we're doing that, especially in boot camp, right? There should be no shortage of feedback. And so, to take an alternate route here, we talk about, the snowflakes. That's one of the things that we had to combat against when it came to Warrior Toughness, right? It's like, we tell a sailor to recalibrate. And for those who may be listening don't know what that means, that's essentially like when a recruit gets so flustered that the training value is lost, then we need to kind of pull them back. And could you say it's a timeout or take a knee and that's bad? Got it. But at a certain point, if you're losing training value, you need to redivert. You need to regain the momentum. So this was really important to me. I remember when I was a young instructor in the SEAL teams, and I would teach close quarter combat, which is kicking doors in and clearing rooms and all that fun stuff. I loved it. But I was like a complete jerk when I would teach, yelling at people and deriding them and just sarcasm and all that stuff, like, because that's how I was trained. And that seemed to be the right thing. Let's just keep going at them to ramp up stress. Yeah. Right? To simulate. It's not combat, so let's ramp up the stress as much as we can. I remember one time I'm sitting there, and there's this young officer, and he is just completely screwing it up. And he just and I look, and I'm yelling at him, and he looked over at me, and it was like, man, his eyes were all glassy. He was completely locked up. And I'm like, and it was in that moment, I said, what the hell are you accomplishing by continuing to yell at this person? All right. So a lot of times we're like, well, we're just going to make shit hard, and that's going to make people tougher. We'll just put them through. But what we know, if we're being smart and if we're being honest, we know that toughness doesn't happen unless there's an adaptation to that stress. And without intentional tools, skills, and processes, then we're not going to build that adaptation. So that's what we're trying to do. Like, we want to always push a recruit. We want to, when we're training somebody for combat, we want to push them to the edge of the cliff. But then we don't push them over. We stop and we pull them back. And we say, all right, collect yourself, re-jock, resituate, lower that stress level, focus on what you need to do to successfully navigate this situation, and then we push them back into that fire. And 9 times out of 10, we'll find that they're successful. But we got to give them the tools, right? We got to give them the coping ability. Because if we don't teach it now, the next time they're in a combat situation, they're not going to have it. And they be that critical sailor that's completely combat ineffective because of their stress levels.
So, I mean, in the end, it could be as simple as just taking a deep breath, gathering yourself, being in the moment, and then attacking the problem. I mean, that's warrior toughness.
It is. So, like, for example, and I use this example sometimes is, some of the stories we heard about, like a brand new sailor, like out of A school or whatever, on the fire party. And all of a sudden there's the general quarters and she's reporting to the repair locker. And as and it's scary, right? It may be the real thing. And so she's stressed. But now, because of the habits that we've built, now she starts going through that breathing. Okay, like you're about to, like they teach us in FBI and LA SWAT, you're about to make entry to serve that warrant where somebody might shoot at you. All right, let's do some long and slow breathing. Let's lower that physiological, that stress level, and then let's start to focus on the specific things that we need to do to get through that situation. So as she makes her way and she starts putting on her gear, she's thinking about what her specific role is in that fire party, and a couple of self-talk things that she can focus on to stay, like exactly like you said, in the moment. She's not thinking about what happens next. She's not saying, oh shit, I wish I had prepared better. She's in the moment and focused on exactly what's going to serve her to be her most effective.
Awesome. All right. Well, pretty sure we crushed the warrior toughness thing and covered that in a quick 33 minutes. But
in exhaustive detail.
Yes. That was a VIP debrief. But so I played the video for those that have joined since and are looking at Steve wondering what the hell's with the long hair. He's retired. If you watch the video and then we put him up on the screen, he's got all this long hair. He is living the retired life, and so beyond the long hair and the beard that you recently shaved, which I know in your career you were able to have a beard on occasion, and there are many people in the Navy that are jealous and still bug MIGPON to allow beards in the Navy, which is like his biggest pet peeve. But I digress. What's it like what are you doing in retirement, man? What are you doing with this thing beyond just getting through COVID?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I always say it's like a good time to be retired and a bad time, right? It's a bad time because if you're not like really, I'll say this. Okay. So I was starting to get some traction. I do, I'm a professional speaker, and I go into business organizations, and I do workshops. I recently started doing with a good friend of mine who lives near, she's a psychologist. And so the two of us and a couple other folks have put together a thing called Elevive, which is it's a little working group where we're going to start to teach psychology and coaching, mental coaching to high school kids or even a little bit older, getting ready to go to or in college, to give them some of the similar stuff. Performance psychology techniques to make sure that they're making good choices and effective in their sport and in their academic lives. But I was going in, I was doing keynotes, I was doing workshops live, of course, and working with another great charity, Folds of Honor, which gives scholarships to the families of fallen servicemen and severely injured. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and I was feeling sorry for myself when I opened an envelope and had to tear in half my advance check for a gig I was about to give.
Oh,
Right? And everything right after that. Of course, I'm like, woe is me. This sucks, right? And then I'm canceling all these events, and then they're like, and then you realize, like, I got a retirement. My wife still got her job. I'm sitting pretty, it's fine. Other people are really, really struggling out there. And those aren't, I'm not even talking about the people that like died from COVID, but just people that have lost their businesses and are really struggling. And so I was without a job for a while. But I said, all right, well, like how do I like I need a sense of purpose. I need something to do. So I reached out to a couple of clients that I had worked with in the past. And I'm like, hey, can I be of service to you? Don't pay me anything. I'll just come on and I'll start disseminating some content for free to help get people through this time. And I started putting out some content on Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff like that with some videos. And then I started people started hiring me to do virtual events, like Zoom events. So I set up a little studio in my house, and I've been doing that for a little bit. It's been, but I'm not killing myself to get these gigs right now because I got both my kids at home. My wife's back at work. She's hitting the road. And so it's really good for me to not like to be able to have that luxury of being home and I get to see my kids every day. Right. And
right.
If I was still in the military, I'd be deployed. And so I'm lucky. My kids are young. My son's 14. My daughter's getting ready to turn 12. And so this is great. I get to see them and I'm lucky for that. So I'm enjoying the retired life and working a little bit too. It's great.
You still a lacrosse dad?
Hockey.
Oh.
Yeah. I gotta get on a plane here, and I gotta fly out to Colorado soon and do that, and hopefully not catch COVID.
Well, good luck with that, man.
Yeah.
All right, so I got two last questions for you, and these are kind of. So this is, I'm a guy getting ready to retire too, and I'm trying to. Figure out what's my my niche, if you will. Where am I going to end up? This thing I'm doing here is really just a project. This is for fun. This is my own therapy, and I love to share. I think one of the things I realized this week is that I am coming to the end of my career, and I was talking to my boss last night actually, and he talked about this high you come off of when you're no longer in command. Now, I'm not in command. I am a command master chief, but there's an apostrophe S there, right? I'm the command's master chief. I belong to them.
Yeah.
But when I come off of this high of 7 tours as a command master chief, I'm not going to have people to share with anymore. So that's what motivate's going to be for me. I already know that. That's what this project is. This isn't what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I plan on getting into something. And so this is my question to you, like mentorship question for the guy who went before me is, what does success look like to you? Like, as you move forward, what does success look like? What is your definition of success? And it doesn't have to be professional, right? It could be anything. So whatever's on your mind.
Yeah, and I always go, like, one of the big things I always talk about, and I'm like being repetitive, but is that sense of purpose of finding something. Because I'll admit, I go through, like, I still have a little bit of challenge being without, like, I mean, I don't know how you go through close to 30 years in the military service and then just get out and not, like, miss a lot of it. Of course I do, like anybody else. Now I don't wallow in misery. I've able to pivot and like really enjoy being with my family. But for anybody that's getting out, you've got to find that thing that drives you. And it could be a career change, or it could be something as simple as what you're doing is finding a way to deliver content, right? You see all these people who put all these Facebook posts up and everything like that. And I would always just say, somebody who told me, this one gal who was like, if you post something, is it of value or is it of vanity? And I think, what you're doing right here is of value. And I think when you're continuing to provide value, you can easily tie that into a sense of success. And so I think success, how I define success, is having a goal and constantly being hungry, not being content or not being satisfied with my current state, wanting to drive and wanting to get more, but being content enough that I don't let the pursuit of that goal get in the way of my happiness. Right. So if you figure, a professional athlete goes into the NFL and, they're never MVP, they never win a Super Bowl, or they just look back at that journey as a complete failure, or are they able to relish the fact that, holy shit, I went to the NFL, right? That's my point is that it's easy just to constantly be so driven on where you want to go that you're losing those moments to where you can really stop and enjoy. So it's really kind of creating that balance and being able to look back and say, you know what, I brought something of value to the world today. So that's how I look at it.
That's solid. Thanks. Appreciate that. Hey, Ashley chimed in here on one of the comments. He said, so is there follow-on training to folks in other than just mentoring as far as like the warrior toughness? I know that this is rolled out into the submarine community, correct? I know we're trying to put, I mean, you're out of the loop. I just heard about it this week. So Ashley, I will tell you this. It's the one thing I know is it's coming to a command near you. They're rolling it out slowly but surely and trying to get it to the fleet. And so I was telling Steve before in the pre-show that, I gave my boss a going away gift when I left. I was leaving and he got a gift from me. And because I was so impressed with what we did and the changes we made. And I knew there was still such a journey to be made. So I don't take credit for RTC at all. A great command master chief came in behind me. The master, in fact, I will tell you that myself or the guy who came in to relieve me had nothing to do with those changes. It was the master chiefs that sat at the table in that office every week that made those changes happen. Rob Vowles, Don Garcia, Tom Lee, Steve Drum, even D, who's on here listening right now, who wasn't there through all of that. But, all of those awesome leaders that were there when I was there, and then there were a couple more that came in after I left. Those were where the rubber met the road, and the folks that made the difference and made the change. But I was just lucky enough to be there when it started. Anyway, I gave him a gift, and the gift was a globe. It was a glass globe, and at the bottom of the globe, it said, "Together we change the world." Because I believe that down the road, warrior toughness will be something that will impact the Navy, not only the Navy, but the people who serve in the Navy. They will have that tool when they go into the civilian world to be better people, to be better whatever, right? If they can apply that tactic to however they face things, right? It doesn't have to be about jumping off the tower to jump in the water at boot camp. It could be about one of my favorite speeches. I'm on my soapbox, Steve, and you know how I get, man. So give me a second. One of my favorite speeches that I gave my son when he was a kid was, you got to get to the edge of what you're afraid of doing. You put your toes right on the edge, and then you take a deep breath and you take a step, and you're going to find that there's solid ground there. And then you take another deep breath and you take another step, and you're going to find that there's solid ground there. And then you take another step and another step and another step. And before you know it, you're on an amazing journey, an absolute amazing journey. So what you're teaching is people how to start that journey. What you created was not a roadmap, but I don't even know. I mean, for the gamers out there, I guess it's the jewel that allows them to unlock the next door for the next thing, right? I'm just trying to speak to every group that's listening right now, but all right. So
man of the people, is he a man of the people?
I am. I'm trying to reach everybody. All right. So last question, brother, and this is kind of my favorite one. I came up with this today as I was thinking about talking to you, and it doesn't have to be warrior toughness. When it's all done, when we are at the end of this journey, when Steve Drum is at the end of his journey at 105 years old, because he took care of himself and he was a fitness geek his whole life and he ate well and his mind was clean. What will your legacy be? What do you want your legacy to be?
Well,
I know it's a tough
since
question.
we're in that fantasy narrative of, yeah. I kind of look, not to make this too drawn out of an answer, but I look at like my time in the military, and I look at like, I was very fortunate. I didn't have friends killed right in front of me. Right. And so my experiences vary. Right. So I love my time taking the fight to the enemy. But if I really look back and I say, and this is the mature me, right, as opposed to like the 25-year-old me, is when I look back, the most satisfaction I get is my training and development of people, of young sailors and officers. And, I didn't always do the best of jobs, but I know I made an impact, working for some great people, teaching assault training to the SEAL teams, teaching foreign partner forces. And then, of course, I'm proud of the work that I did at Warrior Toughness with my team up there. And so professionally, there's that. I think when I look at probably what's going to be the most important when I'm on my deathbed is, of course, the relationship with my children. Did I help raise happy, healthy, productive, independent children that do for others, and have a great relationship with them? And if people look at me, do they say, you know what, that guy treated me well and he gave me something of value? And if I leave my mark on the world on that, I'll be happy.
I love it, man. That's why I talk to folks like you, and because I'm absolutely aligned with you. It's people, people, people. Always will be. It'll never be anything but, and that's what drives me. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is just hoping that I can impact one person and make them a better version of themselves. So thanks, man. I really appreciate you coming on and having this long conversation with me. It's been a blast.
It just flew right by. I got to be honest.
Yeah. It's these are fun. I mean, this isn't about, you said it perfectly. It's not about me. It's about everyone else. So, these are great. Next week, I really look forward to the conversation. I'll share that in a minute. I'm going to sign off with you. Last word to you, and then we're going to stay on. Don't get off. We're going to talk after I close the video out. But any last words for the folks listening right now?
I do these podcasts, and I'm always surprised. That question's always coming. Like, what do you want to leave the audience with? And I never have a good answer. I just say whatever you can do to spend more time in the moment, in terms of being effective in high stakes situations, but also being present with the people that are important in your life.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, brother. Hang out. I'll talk to you in a sec. Hey, everybody else listening, thanks for hanging out for this long. An hour of your Saturday is a long time, and I know some folks will watch us when, down the line, they'll just pick up the video and check us out on YouTube or Facebook. And I appreciate you watching. Next week, we're going to have Steph and Rob. I'm sorry, honey. Sorry, Steph and Rob Weaver. I was already moving ahead in the next conversation, but Steph and Rob Weaver are going to be on here. They're a dual military couple. They've dealt with some different things. They're raising an amazing young boy that they're going to talk about. I'm really excited to have them on here and talk about the challenges they've had as a dual military couple, and just get their opinion on things. Steph is an amazing leader. She's a senior enlisted leader in our Navy. We'll talk about Rob later. I just like talking about Steph because she's a rock star. But anyway, thanks for joining us. Remember that glass isn't half empty. It's not half full. It's just it just needs to be refilled. And I love you. Mean it. Get out there and motivate on this Saturday afternoon.